Hello, and thank you for joining me here at the First Alert Desk. I'm Maria Moreau. Of course, we are talking money today for another installment of the Money Talk with Northwestern Mutual. Want to get into a pretty unique conversation today, and that is the financial planning for women that exists out there. We want to make sure that the women in your life, or whether you are a woman, you're prepared as best as you can to be financially well in your own right, but also give you a few tips and conversations about how to advocate and guide for yourself as you're managing your money. And here joining us is Dr. Nicole Garner Scott. She's a financial management advisor for Northwestern Mutual. Dr. Garner Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I know this is a pretty broad topic. I want to get into some of the specifics. Women face a very unique challenge, but also a unique opportunity to make sure that they are financially well in their lives. And I wanted to get into some of that. Why is there a difference that exists between financial planning for women and financial planning for men?
Well, Maria, I definitely want to dive right on in. First off, I love that you are bringing this conversation to the forefront, given that it's Women's Small Business Month and so many other things transpiring. Very excited that this conversation is front and center. When we think about women, as far as the modern woman in today's day and age, and factors that might impact her financial planning, there's a few things that can separate what she might be going through as far as what a male counterpart might be going through. And I would say a few factors is life expectancy. Um, Given science, a lot of women typically outlive their male counterparts, at least up to a couple of years, according to the CDC. So that's one factor. Also, retirement age, because living longer, the wealth pay gap, some of those different arenas, some women are just having to work longer. Maternity leave, of course, can affect that in some type of way. Caregiving responsibilities, as we saw through the pandemic, a lot of mothers had to take away time from work for their children, uh, schooling, homeschooling, as well as just being that caregiver assigned more in the family. And a variety of other life experiences that can add to that. Even in today's age, how divorce can impact your finances, choice of career can impact your finances. There are quite a few different things that can play a role into that planning.
And I think we can agree men and women both face financial challenges and often benefit from financial planning. For the purpose of this conversation, I did want to focus the conversation on women, and particularly I want to read to you a statistic that maybe you can weigh in on. This actually coming from Northwestern Mutual, with women more likely than men to feel their financial planning needs improvement. 63% of women say that they're not confident in their financial direction. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's a sign of the times, right? So even if you go back a few decades, there weren't as many financial advisors that were women, back then, as well as just the relevancy in that market. And what's beautiful about what's transpiring now is that there is a massive amount of women starting to enter into this space that will sit down and really see and really hear the individuals that they're working with. Also, too, you have many women stepping into maybe the breadwinning position of the household, or maintaining being what I call the household CFO, the chief financial officer of the home. And so with that, there comes a lot of responsibility. Maybe throughout life, you never carried that role, but now in your home, you're acting as such. And so with that, being able to equip women with the right tools, the right plan, the right infrastructure to be able to maintain that space.
And you yourself are in a unique position where you work with all kinds of folks on their financial plan, but you also work with women. What are some of the concerns that you see coming forward, and how do you really set the direction for a financial plan that a woman can take on?
I would say concerns is just one, really understanding what second half looks like for them, making sure that they arrive well positioned given everything that's transpiring. So really sitting down, having a money team that you can start to consult with, really being able to understand what needs to transpire as far as estate planning, legacy planning, having your risk management in place, really making sure that you're hitting on all the marks of having a very buttoned up scenario for yourself. I think also too, we're coming to a beautiful space in society right now where it's not as taboo to talk about money. But given you go back a few generations, the women in your family, you might not have had those open and honest conversations. So we have a lot of first and second generation women that are having a lot of these high level conversations and not necessarily having a group or constituency to be able to discuss that with. So that's where you want to kind of use your outside resources to be able to do that too, really having a trusted individual that you can speak to in regards to that.
I'm really glad you brought that up, that generational teaching that might not exist for women, but also the fact that we're entering a space where that's not becoming so common anymore. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the conversation around partners they usually have about money. They want to plan together, they set financial goals together, but they also want to be individuals financially speaking. How can partners set up their conversations around money, particularly women, when they want to support their family, but they also want to make sure that they are supporting themselves and their own financial endeavors?
Well, I would say that's when having a third party advocate helps out as well if conversations do happen to get intense or just really covering all the basics. So, in regards to dealing with a lot of families, a lot of partners in our practice, many times just some of those harder conversations, I call them the bolder conversations, haven't transpired. I don't know if you are familiar with the book Courageous Conversations by Brene Brown, but it really hones in. I use that book a lot with couples on just the beauty of getting to a very transparent place. So sometimes families have not discussed if we have an Asian parent and they need financial help. Does that come from us? Do we have a parent come live with us? Is our child is going to college? If for some reason they don't qualify for scholarships, how are we approaching that? What does retirement really look like for you? Do you want to stop working at 65? Do you want to stop working at 50? Do we have everything in place to be able to do such? A lot of those courageous conversations, one, have to first happen with yourself and then happen with your potential partner or other individuals that you're co-planning with for the future. But the best thing I would definitely say too is realizing that the stronger both individual is, the stronger the co-work or the co-plan is. So if we have one partner that's on board and completely has the mindset of progressive financial planning, and another partner is going completely backwards, then a lot of that planning becomes undone or it becomes sabotage or undermined. So individually, both people have their personal finances in place and the mindset to carry on really structurally sticking to a plan.
And while we are on this conversation, if you have a question you want to ask Dr. Garner Scott, of course, comment it below. We are going through all of our live comments, making sure we include you guys in this conversation. I wanted to talk a little bit about today's modern day woman. A lot of women are working as well as managing their families, much like the rest of us. There's a lot of aspects of their life that money ties into. Talk to me a little bit about advocacy. Primarily, a challenge women face is having to advocate for themselves in the workplace, whether they're on the job hunt or talking to their employer about a promotion. What are some steps they can take to make sure that they secure their financial wellness in the workplace?
So I would say step one is really understanding and deciding what you are doing for the collective. I love to really mention to women that a, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So as one woman continues to open doors, break glass ceilings, create more space and more awareness in her workplace, then that starts to trickle down to all the women coming behind you. And so understanding your mindset around that and how you are progressing, what can happen for women as a whole. So even just that mindset of taking it just from an individual scenario to just an overall collective scenario really helps you stand your ground in that space. I would definitely say too, also just reminding yourself that you can show up as as the woman you truly are when you're not so worried about finances, right? So the more that you give yourself capacity, the more that you are getting paid your true worth, the more you have the time to be there for your kids, to be the wife that you want to be, or in the relationship that you aspire to be in, the more you're able to show up in your community, the more you're able to really operate in your full totality, where you're able to have more bandwidth in regards to um, uh, financials that's coming in. So you want to make sure that you are advocating for yourself so that you are able to fully blossom in what it is that you're doing. I will also say, just for many women, don't use your previous paycheck as a benchmark when it comes to what it is that you're worth. This economy is completely different than the economy of yesteryear, right? And we're looking at job increases, we're looking at pay increases, we're looking at transparency of what's happening more in the hiring market. We're looking at, how people have had time to develop their skills at a greater level. All of that matters to where you are now. So it's a fresh chapter, and it's an opportunity for you to completely go into that new position without having to be handcuffed to what you were in your last position.
You have me feeling inspired for sure. I wanted to also get your thoughts on this, read you another statistic here. We find often that women prefer 36% exactly, prefer a slower approach to investing. Slow and steady wins the race. They're very cautious with setting up that emergency fund, with being strategic with their investments. And a lot of times that term invest with intention comes into the conversation. Why do you think that a majority of women have this approach? And is there a key that they should keep in mind when they're considering financial investing?
Yeah, so definitely I love the terminology of invest with intention. Um, Given what's transpiring across the board, I think that being able to understand what your true goals are and using that as your GPS or your benchmark will allow you to make better decisions in all your financial planning. And it pulls you out from the emotional side of it. So when we understand that the goal is, let's say, to leave a certain amount as far as legacy, then you start to align your strategy, your team, your purpose with that. And you're not being adjusted or having what we call like shiny object syndrome, where you're jumping on everything immediately, because you have a strong why and strong foundational purpose of intention that's guiding you through that process. So I think that's very key. Also, too, um, uh, when it comes to a lot of women, it's very much not trying to have instant gratification. And I can't speak for all women, just in regards to what the statistics and the numbers tell us. But as far as slow and steady wins the race, and really being able to put yourself in a position where you don't have to worry later on in life, where we've seen that with women in previous generations. We've seen our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers worry at a very high level as soon as their support system was no longer available to them. So that has empowered this generation and generations to follow to be more intentional, to really jump in there. When people tell me, Nicole, I'm not the money girl, I'm like, it's a new day and age. You are the money girl. You have to own it. You have to live it, breathe it, and know it, that you have everything to empower you to make that good intentional decision. And you know what's best for you, for your bloodline, for your family, with what you're trying to accomplish.
I could not have said that better myself, Nicole. I wanted to ask you, as someone who works closely in this world and advising people, what has been just the biggest thing for you seeing that change through generations?
I would definitely say it's just a level of empowerment that has worked all across the board. I say your wealthiest self is your most authentic self. And when you have a very strong, structured, well-designed plan working for you, you're able to really show up in all the different areas of life that you may have not been able to fully experience prior to. So really seeing that, really loving that there's so much information that's available now. And so having access to that, at least using it as a seed to explore and to take a deeper dive. So many women are, especially in a lot of our meetings, they bring their children into the meetings. They are very much involved in making sure that before their children enter into adulthood, they're very intentional about making sure that generational wealth is not only passed down through financial contribution, but through educational contribution too. And so I see a very, very large uprise in that as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garner Scott. I want to make sure we don't leave anything out. What are some resources that women or someone who really wants to help the woman in their life can connect them to get them started on their financial planning journey?
So I would definitely say on Northwestern.com's website, there are a few different tools that I suggest for women to tap into immediately. One being the retirement calculator. So sitting down and figuring out what that true number looks like. I know a lot of us we have a random number in our mind of what it will cost for us to retire, but really understanding that. So that retirement calculator is excellent. Also, a caregiver calculator is available on the site too. And I think that that's very important. If you know that you're going to take time the first 5 years after you have your child away from work, or you're going to have to downsize availability to work because you have a parent moving in with you or whatever that might be, that caregiver calculator is excellent for you to do that as well. And then also too, just being able to surround yourself with individuals that see and hear and understand what it is you're going through. Really understanding what are your triggers, what is happening right now for you, what's your true starting point, and really hearing your goals and how you want to attribute a plan towards that.
Dr. Nicole Garner Scott, thank you so much for your time. Of course, this full interview, along with those resources, are going to be on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much.